Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody, and thank you for coming back to this series of the P51. I have the bow fighter here still, but it's kind of on pause because now I'm more interested in the P51. So last time I left you that I built up the engine mount for the engine. I still need to unglue this to put it on because it's kind of very close, it doesn't fit. I'm preparing the tray for the ESC. This will somehow come in here. I did some slits in it, more for ventilation than for weight. I don't think it saves much weight, if any, but for ventilation, because my idea is that I'll use the original, like on the rail plane, right? Like an air intake in here that should go in there, will ventilate the engine a little bit, and also hopefully go through and ventilate the ESC, which is, I believe, the part of the whole setup that gets the hottest. So if I just put it like this, I don't know if you can see it, then the air would actually go underneath it. So that's why I opened up the slit, so at least some of the air goes in through there. And then what I still have to do is then a tray, which will probably be maybe another of the scraps, a tray for the receiver and the battery. So somehow I have to figure out how to squeeze everything in. A tray maybe for the servos. I've got to look into my stash of servos. I call it a stash, but I don't know if I have any. Have to look around. That I'm going to put in the cockpit area. I'm going to come in here, and then in the tail area, what I have to do is the tail wheel. I believe it goes onto this former H. I'm going to probably use this piece also. These are the middle parts of what I was cutting out somewhere. So. And I kind of reinforce it, probably put like a plastic tube, like from a Q-tip or from a lollipop or something, and put a wire and a wheel. I don't know if I have a wheel. If not, I can make it out of wood. That's also okay. I actually might start with this because this is maybe a little bit easier and more straightforward than doing all the electronics. But anyhow, that's the plan for this one. Let me come back to you when I have some progress, and basically as it goes along, I'll probably start to do already the stringers on the side, and eventually I have to figure out also the cockpit. The cockpit is always a bit of a difficult part, right? Like, we'll see how we handle that one when we get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right? So anyhow, let me update you when I have something, probably the tail wheel. And let me show you what I've been up to, different things. But let's start with the tail wheel, which is basically kind of set. So what I did, I cut out the bottom shape of the former H twice, and with a bit of plastic tubing and bending the wire, I managed to do this. The thought is that this is kind of, if it's on the ground, it's kind of free castering almost. If it gets into the air, it's a bit less free castering. It should be like lockdown, right? Like, I'm over engineering this, it's evident, because this will never be used because it doesn't have a main landing gear, because we failed on that approach, right? But anyhow, so we have here the tail wheel. It's just two pieces of wood, I think like 2.5 millimeters, glued like cross grain, that it's a bit stronger. I put on another layer of glue on top of it and I painted it, and then I used some sequins. This is the approach that that Cliff taught us, and basically that's then the tail wheel. As I say, it's decoration. I wanted to show you just the structure that is there, because in total it's like 3 times 1.5. I'm not too worried about weight, first because it's very light, and second because I think I'm going to need tail weight somehow because of everything that goes on in the nose area. So then the next step is going to be to glue this and clamp this in place, and then we're going to have, let's see if I can hold it in a way that you can see it, the tail wheel will be here, right? So I put it already in place. It might get in the way a little bit for the formers and the tissue, but it has to be there, right? So that's going to be then the tail wheel. What else I've been up to then? Well, not so much actually, just a lot of thinking, but I did manage to build in here the tray for the servos. I've got the 9mm servos. This is the one that I wanted to use for the landing gear, the retract that I failed. So basically it's two servos. I'm putting them a little bit staggered, so I don't know why, it somehow felt a little bit more solid. I put in 2 pieces of balsa there, and then the tray will come in here. This will be glued in place, and then the servos inside. and then I'm thinking how to actually connect then the rods to the tail, because it's, I mean, it's not very narrow, but it is a little bit narrow. I'm thinking of actually crossing the controls, right? So this control could go for the rudder, but it would probably, the arm would be from here and it would go across, and the one for the elevator would also go across, so they would cross each other in the fuselage. At some point then I also need to figure out where the wire is going to go. It's going to go again through former H, which is good because then it's not going to buckle so much. I might need to put in some other reinforcement in the in other formats, so probably before I go with the stringers, I'll probably start to fix already the servos in place and do the servo rods. And then other than that, I think you've seen all the rest, right? So still the tray for the ESC, that's what I want to now play with now. Maybe glue it in place, and then also cut this piece out, and then this is going to be the tray for the receiver and for the battery. So just mindful that here I'm going to have then the main spar of the wing coming in, so I've got to probably measure it a little bit more accurate than I'm used to, so to make sure that it's good and in place, and maybe trim this off a little bit also. So I think weight again, I don't think it's an issue now, but why carry extra weight if it's not needed? So anyhow, so I'll get on with that, as I say, tail wheel, and then the trays for the electronics, and put in the servos and the push rods, and figure out where they have to go, which is a bit of guesswork. And some more visible progress on the fuselage. Before I show you the details, let me show you something which is much more exciting, of course, which is the test running, right? So I've managed to connect all the electronics in there. It seems to be working. I haven't connected the aileron servos in yet. I should probably also do that at some point, but now it's too many cables in there. I've also got the servos. I don't think you can see them move, maybe a little bit you can see it move. That's going to be then the rudder, it's going to cross over, and I've got also the elevator, which is also going to cross over. So big thing is the motor with the propeller. It is touching a little bit on the Balsa. I'm kind of hoping that if I do this long enough, it kind of wears its hole out, right? But that's maybe not a good practice. But anyhow, I'll maybe unplug it so that nothing happens, and take the battery out. I've got it on these kind of, I'm going to call them stilts, but it's kind of the small clamps to keep it upright. And as you can see, so I've glued already some of the trays in place. The trays for the servo is glued in place. The servos aren't in place, glued yet, but maybe I could do that already. And basically in this whole area I'm going to then build the hatch. That's probably going to be a whole different chapter. What I've done also is start to put in the stringers for the nose. I've had to pull it off, and I've had to do some adjustments, because I don't know if you can see it on the original plan. These would just glue on top, I think, which I'm no, actually they go in, but they're not in the trace out, so I had to kind of with a small file, a small needle nose file, like cut in the notches so that I can put it in. Also needed to adjust a bit of the basic stringers, and then what I've done here on this part, which is where the hatch is going to come in. Again, I did not do the fuselage former with the notches in mind, because of course this wasn't supposed to have a hatch. So what I've done, I glued it on top, and then I've put in little bits of balsa, somehow filling it in. These are still maybe a little bit wet, so then I'm still missing one, mustn't forget that one. I'll sand it then down to shape so that the tissue has somewhere to stick to. I've done it on others that it's not so clean, so I'm trying to make it a little bit cleaner, and then I'll trim off the formers. So so far so good. Still something to do in the nose, but coming on okay. Next challenge, when I get to it, is going to try to put in the push rods, kind of measure them out at least approximately, and see how they're going to cross over, and at what height and what spot I want them to come out the back. So that's going to be then the next step. So it's going to be time to wrap up this video, because amongst other things I'm stuck. So I've put on the top part of the fuselage, as you can see already, most of the stringers, if not all. I'm going to struggle with the cockpit that's going to come in here, I'm not sure how to do it exactly. I might leave it like just with the structure without glass slash plastic. And I've also got this other part that has to be covered up, maybe with wood. I might do it with card actually, because it has, if you can see it here behind Thomas the tank engine that's lying around, there's this window that has to come in here, so I have to see how I do it. It might be plastic actually. And then, as I say, here the cockpit, and then here I'm going to build up the battery hatch, which might be actually the next step. The underside I haven't built in yet because the wing has to be put in place, and that's why I was now putting the wing in place to see how it would look like, if it would actually fit or not. And it kind of fits. I think it's okay. So probably the next step is going to be, after the hatch, then to glue the wing in and also do the programming. I'm trying to not use the Y cable to save weight, and because I don't have one at hand, I think. So I'm going to try, I've plugged in the 2 servos of the wings into the receiver, and I have to configure it because I only have one configured, I believe, on this one, so I have to configure the other one, and let's see if it works. I did get a little bit of a fright with one of the aileron servos because it kind of got stuck and started to make noise twice, so I hope I don't need to change it out because they were expensive and because I don't want to do it. But that, anyhow, that's I'll cross that bridge if I have to when the moment comes. Other than that, I think it looks kind of okay, relatively straight. As I say, it's not glued on yet, it's still just being held on with the big clamps, and still a lot of things to do before I can continue. So electronics, battery hatch, cockpit, glue the wing in, turn it around, do the underside of the fuselage, and then still the tail. So still quite a lot to go. So I'm going to leave it here. As always, thank you everybody very much for watching and following along, and I'll see you next time.